Hey y'all, it is your favorite nerdy girl here, Nerdy Girl Reviews, and we're back with another recap for Ozark Season 4. And it is a two-parter. I'm gonna see, Lord, if I can break this down, all 14 episodes. Yes, y'all. So if you'd like to hear and see my full commentary, keep me locked here on YouTube. If you're watching this on Instagram, click the link in bio. If you're watching this on IG Stories, click on the link. It'll link you back to my YouTube channel. I'm also available on TikTok under Nerdy Girl Reviews. And if you'd like to catch my other recaps and reviews, you can find me on SoFaithfulForYourSoul.com. Let's play this out, y'all. Be right back. Now, before we jump into the review, we are listening to The Trashman, Surfing Bird. Bird is the word from 1963. I thought it went nicely with the birds, the family, the birds from Ozark. So now we move into the review. Stay tuned. Now we start off season 4 with this lovely song, one of my favorites by Sam Cooke, Bring It Home to Me. I love Sam Cooke, but this is one of my favorites, absolute all-time favorites by Sam Cooke. Now, if you go by the lyrics, if you ever change your mind about leaving me behind, baby, bring it to me. Bring your sweet lovin', bring it on home to me. Now, the whole song, I think correlates perfect with the intro and basically the whole concept of the entire series. It's not only just a feeling between Marty Bird and Wendy Bird, but also amongst the children of Jonah and Charlotte. Sorry, let me fix my camera. Charlotte, which is so funny because my intention was to look more like Wendy, but I ended up looking more like Charlotte with the whole coif. But I mean, what hasn't this family gone through? And I'm late on my review, not just because, it's a taxing 14 episodes, that every episode is genuinely worth the watch, but because it's so intimidating, it's intimidating information, and as a reviewer, I really want to embrace the material as intellectual as I can. Again, I can't say that I would know firsthand what any of these people have put themselves through, and including even the showrunner, writers, for the show, of having that verbiage of financial advisors. Wendy's background, at least, well, that's Marty's background. Wendy's background is in politics. And without going through an analysis of both as a coupling, they're codependent, but obviously we do see that Wendy is she goes more rogue than now necessarily Marty. I think Marty has always been devoted to her, and that doesn't mean that now that's a weakness. It's just, I think he has a really tough time either saying no to Wendy or walking away from the situation, which, not for nothing, I think she's always been on like the more adventurous type, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing about Wendy. Essentially, when we started the series, she was kind of following more of Marty's lead in her own way. She still was tough as nails because she was definitely no doormat, but I think she kind of really settled into this role that made her very appealing. And not only for like these politicians that knew how to play in this filthy playpen of corruption, but also the likes of Navarro, which is our kingpin here. And he kind of develops, I mean, not for nothing, kind of like midway through the first set of episodes for season 4, aside from the fact that there were these very intimate moments, which she established in other seasons, and I will try my best to go back and review the other seasons as well. But that she had the panache and the chutzpah to call him and not wait around till Marty made a decision. I think that already caught Navarro's attention, who is played beautifully here by Felix Solis. Yes, Omar Navarro, who's our kingpin here. And he, I think he was intrigued by her, also taken aback from her boldness, that she could hold her own like any other man. And I think midway in the first sets of episodes, I think he kind of declares that he has a little bit, not a crush, but the fact that when it seems like, and this, there's continuous attempts, and the fantasy that everybody here can get out clean, even Omar himself, that they can just like end the life and not see any kind of repercussions for what they've already committed, the crimes that they've committed. And even Wendy, to be so bold to believe that she can transit through life not seeing consequences based on her actions. So I believe it's almost the last episode to the first half of episodes that released for season 4, which I think is episode 7. They've brought Navarro to the FBI. They're working out a deal of what's going to happen, how they're to move forward. He wants complete immunity. He wants to go back and forth with it. Again, it's a dream. It's a dream. And the fact that Wendy and Marty, specifically Wendy, is able to pull that many strings and use her politics background to really get into the pockets of senators, of Congress, to maneuver and get him off of some FBI watch list. I mean, it's amazing to me what she is willing to do. And I would say she always uses the comfort of the safety of my children. But is it really the safety of your children? Or is just something about doing the wrong thing that is kind of an aphrodisiac for a lot of people? Because that's how we are introduced to Wendy from season 1. She was definitely getting her euphoria from having an illicit extramarital affair. So here we are seeing the same thing. But now it's 10 times much more dangerous, because not only is she putting her life and her children's lives, our family's lives in danger, but also seeing time in a federal prison. But I think because she's so bold and fierce when it comes to she doesn't necessarily, she thinks it out. But I want to say that she strikes, and quick. She doesn't think twice about it, even if it comes to to some form of detriment. But I think Omar is attracted to that he kind of tells her, like, you know what, not for nothing, but there's a little bit of somber, maybe perhaps fear of you under the impression that you can get out, that the FBI really, this is gonna all lead to some fairy tale ending. And she's like, why would I look like that? And he's like, because there's really not much excitement when you go back to your quote unquote normal life. All of this has been addictive and enticing to her. So again, not of her own doing, because Marty did put her in this position, but something about it, she took to it like duck to a water. And so he kind of indicates that he's like, when you're in your alone time, say you're back to your normal life, you're in your own home, and you've had a couple of bottles of wine, and the kids are out having fun or moved out, don't forget about me. And he kind of like gets real close to her. It's like, if Marty, you were not in the picture, which don't be surprised, he probably would have done something. Because something about this was like this chess game that they're playing, not only with their lives, but but with each other. Because I get a feeling like Omar trusted way more Wendy than he did Marty. And that essentially that's how we kind of start. We start the season post. He had put all Omar had put all his eggs in the basket of the birds. That he offed his longtime faithful lawyer of Helen Pierce, played by Janet McTeer, which, by the way, I had no idea she was a Brit. Again, this is just further confirmation how these Brits are coming for these U.S. roles, because she did a great job as being super intimidating and super biatch. But she is definitely one to look out for. But yes, sorry, I'm sure. Look, the Ozark season 4 has been out for a while, so I don't think I'm necessarily spoiling it or ruining for anybody here. If you're watching, and thank you for watching. But yes, she really is intimidating, and he had like realized that the birds had much more weight than now necessarily Helen did. But we also start to see how other elements of their life, it's like almost like it's a game of chess, like, but once they think that like this is checkmate, something happens. So, like, they lose a leg of something, they've lost leverage to something, always something happens. For the fact that like say even the turmoil that's existing amongst their children of Charlotte and Jonah. Charlotte was a pain in the butt. Sorry, she was in season 3. But season 4, it's like Jonah, who had always been devoted to the parents from the very beginning. He was always there to defend his family. And for him to totally do 180 because of the circumstance with Ben. And I want to make a note too here when it comes to Ben. Ben is played by Tom Pilfrey. What a talent. I was impressed. I was really impressed with him for season 3. That's why I want to go back and revisit that season. But I thought he was phenomenal, aside from the twang, which is very charming. But how he really came across as like sincere, especially when it came to his issues with mental health, the way that they approached it. And it wasn't in the sense that it's like, oh, he's the one with issues. You could tell that Wendy, like, we have more of an understanding of why Wendy is the way she is. Wendy has a past. Unlike Marty, who seems like he was always on the straight and narrow, probably. And we haven't necessarily, I don't think we've ever gone over like their family tree, so we don't know necessarily all the background on Marty. But Marty, you know, is the nerd here. He knows numbers, probably came from a well-to-do family. But Wendy comes from a broken home and an alcoholic father. She's from Carolina, I think South Carolina, and had to battle the fact that I don't necessarily think that the mother was necessarily present, and she was kind of left with her father, which wasn't the best ideal. She tried to run away. You know, him being her father, which we're also introduced to in this season, played by, hold on a sec, played by Richard Thomas. And if he sounds familiar, if you've seen the miniseries It, before it was the big famous movie, then you know who I'm talking about. So, you know, even though he knew that he was an alcoholic, he was one of these people who hides behind the church, hides behind religion. Woe is me, my children are so near impossible, and whatever the case may be, and using the religion to better suit him, or to leave this best impression on the church, not because necessarily those feelings were really there. when it came to child rearing or caring for his children. It's almost like his preference was his his addiction. So it was a very chaotic home that maybe she had to do nearly anything to escape from. So when she was kind of living, quote unquote, the ideal life, she's living in Chicago, Marty, or whatever the case may be, but then we fall into this trapping, and now we see her come into her own, but then we're now introduced as viewers of why she did what she did to kind of escape that, and how that tumultuous relationship between her father and her brother, that's why she was really a caregiver of her brother. But unfortunately, he would get off his meds and he'd be volatile. And though at the beginning she just doesn't want to cop to the fact that Ben, unfortunately, her brother, meets his demise because he's out of control. He's having manic episodes, and he's not the average person that can like fully understand, look, you need to keep this quiet or you're gonna get us all killed. That wasn't registering, that she had to make the impossible decision of having him killed by the Navarro, you know, um, cartel. So she lets, the driver and also bodyguard of Navarro know where her brother was. And that bleeds into the second set of episodes, because then we see the backstory. Like in season 3, we have like the skimming of it through Wendy's perspective, but then there's a particular episode, I think this is episode 10 of the last few episodes, of him kind of coming into that realization that he was going to meet his demise. And it's so heartbreaking, and that's what I'll say about that actor, that he can convey that vulnerability. And there are moments even when in season 3, which I have to revisit, where Wendy and her brother are having these intimate moments, and there's a breakdown because she's like, I don't know what to do with you. I love you. And because also he was kind of, because she tried to get him to stay in a mental institution, and he, unfortunately, because he was dating Ruth, and Ruthie, we so champion Ruthie, but she fell in love with Ben and thought that the best decision for him was to take him out of that hospital. And taking him out, it did, I think, more worse than good. Jonah became Jonah, who's Wendy's son, got very attached to him, because I think up until this point, I don't necessarily think that he had been present in his life, because Wendy tried to keep all of this away, including the grandpa and her brother's issues. So now that, because they're living in Missouri and they're in this situation, they've introduced this character, and they already went through also a loss with the former owner of this beautiful, like, very 1970s chic house with all these open windows. But it was an elderly man that Jonah grew attached to. And Ben was kind of reminiscent of that as well. He has Marty, thankfully, and they have like a mutual love for each other. And he did, at least for his mother, for a while, but now this is disdain because of this. So in realizing, because Helen, before she met her demise, she let Jonah know that it was because of Wendy that Ben is no longer alive. So he now takes that information and it grows into resentment. And it's bad enough that they're already living in this very hostile environment where they don't know if they're gonna live or die, because everything's so fickle and life is so fickle. But now let's add the added pressure of losing somebody that was very close to him, or someone he could relate to. And so he really does a 180 on her, that she's at her like wits. But what's funny about Wendy, because even though we would typically see her as like sociopath, non-feeling. She is very sensitive when it comes to her children. She is very mama bear when it comes to those two. So when she was going through the motions with Charlotte, you can see her getting violent, but it's not because of like, she wants to be this monster. It's just that she needs them to be on board. She feels that if they fall in line, they'll remain safe. So now that Jonah's acting all rogue, and perhaps maybe a little inkling of her, she's not happy, and she does everything in her power. Which honestly, I think is so funny because in this perspective, you would never assume that you would see any kind of form of child rearing, but you do see it. You see it here, and and what doesn't she do? Like when Jonah starts like money laundering through online, um, what is it? I forget what they're called. Um, oh, I forget what they're called, but they're not like genuine businesses that you can, and so you can money launder, money across the globe or internationally. And they had known that he had been doing it, but because he wanted to get at his mother's goat, he starts working for Ruth. And Ruth also, once Ruth has an understanding that Ben is gone because of Wendy, she also does a 180. It's like, F y'all, I'm not going to work for y'all anymore.